Now, let's talk about the Battle of Ohio, a matchup between AFC North division opponents in the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns, as the Cincinnati Bengals beat the Cleveland Browns 17-16 for the Bengals. Joe Burrow, he went 14 of 23. He threw for 113 passing yards, 1 touchdown. For the Browns, Joe Flacco, he went 31 of 45. He threw for 290 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. The Bengals snapped a 7-game losing streak in weeks 1 and 2, and they entered 1-11 in weeks 1 and 2 under Zach Taylor since 2019. So, for me, I would classify this Bengals win over the Browns as a bad win. Now, I believe in the NFL, you have games where you have bad wins and bad losses, and you have good wins and good losses. Like, I thought yesterday, the Jets had a good loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They scored 32 points, and Justin Fields played pretty good in that matchup. And so Jets fans should feel optimistic about the Jets moving forward. So I thought the Jets had a good loss. I thought against the Browns, the Bengals had a bad win. And the reason why I felt like the Bengals had a bad win was because in the second half, the Bengals only had 7 yards of total offense. 7 yards. They literally got shut out by the Cleveland Browns in the second half. And the thing is, for the Bengals, the game actually started out well. On 2 of their first 3 possessions, the Bengals scored touchdowns. They scored touchdowns. And in the second half, they got completely shut out. And this was the Bengals offense against the Browns Sunday. They only had 141 yards. That's the fewest in any game under Zach Taylor. And that's 107 regular season games and playoff games. And I'm looking at the Bengals offense. The Browns held the Bengals to only 7 yards in the second half. It's the fewest yards in the second half by a winning team in the last 25 years. And I'm looking at the stat sheet, right? Everywhere you look on the stat sheet, the Browns, they were better than the Bengals. Everywhere on the stat sheet. The Browns had more first downs than the Bengals. The Browns had more rushing yards than the Bengals. The Browns had more passing yards than the Bengals. The Browns had more total yards than the Bengals. The Browns had more sacks than the Bengals. And the Browns dominated time of possession, 35-24, over the Bengals. And so for me, I'm listening to Booger McFarland, who's on ESPN, and I'm listening to Bengal fans. I was watching the game on Sunday. I was at a bar watching the Bengals-Browns game, and after the Bengals beat the Browns, I see Bengal fans in there clapping and celebrating like there's a reason to actually celebrate. You beat the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are one of the worst teams in the NFL. Granted, the Browns-Bengals matchup is like the Super Bowl for the Cleveland Browns. It's the Battle of Ohio, and the Browns want to have bragging rights over the Bengals. So that's one element of the matchup between the Browns and the Bengals. But to me, if the Bengals have true Super Bowl aspirations, there is no way as a Bengal fan you walk away from that game feeling confident about the Bengals being able to compete with the other teams in the AFC, like the Baltimore Ravens, like the Kansas City Chiefs, like the Buffalo Bills, like the LA Chargers. There's no way as a Bengal fan you are confident after that game. Simple as that. And I thought the Browns honestly self-imploded in this matchup. There were self-inflicted wounds that helped the Bengals win this game, including this kicker for the Cleveland Browns, Andre Schmidt. He is lucky to still have a job. He is lucky to still have a job. Mr. Schmidt, you have one job. One job. He missed an extra point and he missed a field goal. That's 4 points that the Browns did not have on the scoreboard, and they could have easily won this game 20-17 over the Bengals. Easily. That's 4 points by this kicker, Schmidt. So Schmidt is lucky to still have a job. I saw countless drops by Jerry Jeudy. Good Lord, I don't know if Jerry Jeudy will ever develop into being an elite receiver in the NFL. We had high expectations for this brother after he came out of Alabama, but Jerry Jeudy has not been able to be that elite receiver out of Alabama like we've seen from the Devontae Smiths of the world, the Jalen Waddles of the world. He's not been able to be that elite receiver. Jerry Jeudy has to be better for the Cleveland Browns. But in totality, I thought the Browns had self-inflicted wounds, and that's why they lost this game. I don't feel like the Bengals defense did anything specific or anything elite to make me believe that the Bengals have improved their defense at all. And I'm watching ESPN earlier. And there was one of the videos that the ESPN had posted. This is on the NFL on ESPN's YouTube. Booger McFarland, the Bengals defense showed up. What? They showed up? They gave up over 300 yards to a Browns offense that is one of the worst offenses in the NFL. I think the Browns have one of the worst skill position groups in the NFL. I'm looking at this Browns receiver core. Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Jamari Thrash. Okay, I like David Njoku at tight end, but that's about it. That's about it. I think Njoku is their best player offensively. Now, as much as I want to say the defense did not play well, because I know Bengal fans and apparently Booger McFarland believes the Bengals defense, they played well in this game. I have to admit, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, for them to only have 17 points and only 7 yards of total offense is inexcusable. But more than Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, I blame Zach Taylor. And the reason why I blame Zach Taylor is because when I watch the Rams, I see Sean McVay scheme up plays for players to get open in his offense. When I watch the Packers, I see Matt LaFleur scheme up plays for players to get open in his offense. When I watch the 49ers, I see Kyle Shanahan scheme up plays to get players open in his offense. When I watch the Cincinnati Bengals, I feel like Zach Taylor just tells Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to just go out there and get open. Just go out there and get open. Just go out there and try to use your talent to get open. Because Zach Taylor does not scheme open Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. He does not. And this is the thing. As bad as the Cleveland Browns are as a football team and as an organization, the one strong unit in their organization is their defense, led by Myles Garrett, who is the best pass rusher in the NFL. I believe Myles Garrett is better than T.J. Watt, Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa. Myles Garrett is the best pass rusher in the NFL, and I saw a play in the fourth quarter where Myles Garrett literally hurried Burrow and got 3 back-to-back sacks in one possession. It was one possession in the fourth quarter where Myles Garrett literally dominated that Bengals offensive line, and he got to Burrow 3 straight times. 3 straight times, Garrett got to Burrow. There was one play earlier in the game where Garrett got to Burrow, and Burrow smartly got the ball out. He still got drilled by Garrett, but Myles Garrett dominated that Bengals offensive line. That's another area where I felt like the Bengals didn't necessarily improve. Not only did they not improve defensively, I thought their O-line struggled in this game with Myles Garrett. But Myles Garrett is one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. You're not going to see a Myles Garrett on a week-to-week basis. You only got to deal with him twice a year in the division. But defensively, the Cleveland Browns have one of the best secondaries in the NFL, led by Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward, Grant Delpit, Greg Newsome II, Miles Harden. The Cleveland Browns have a top 5 secondary in the NFL. And so, as great as Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are, you need a head coach who can scheme plays up to get Jamar Chase and T. Higgins open against this Browns secondary. And I did not see that in this game against the Browns. And that's my biggest issue with Zach Taylor. He claims to be an offensive mind, but he is not the offensive mind like a Matt LaFleur is, like a Kyle Shanahan is, like a Sean McVay is, like a Ben Johnson is. That is not Zach Taylor. And Zach Taylor has the best number 1 and number 2 receiver in the NFL in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And they could not get open against the Cleveland Browns secondary. I'm looking at Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. T. Higgins, 3 receptions, 33 receiving yards. Jamar Chase, 2 receptions, 26 receiving yards. That is not going to get it done. You have to scheme these guys open against this elite Browns secondary. But all in all, I do not believe that the Bengals fixed their early season struggles. And if I were a Bengal fan, I would be concerned about the Bengals moving forward. Yes, you got the win. It was a bad win for the Cincinnati Bengals against the Cleveland Browns. But we're going to see what the Bengals are made of against the Jaguars in week 2. Because after that, week 3, they're in Minnesota. Week 4, they're in Denver. Okay? And then week 5, they're home against the Lions. Week 6, they're in Lambeau against the Packers. And week 7, they're home against the Steelers. So we're going to find out what this Bengals team is made of. But I do not personally believe that the Bengals have fixed their early season struggles. Because if they were playing against any average team in the NFL, they would have lost that game in week 1. Those are my thoughts on Bengals Browns.